Aloha, friends! Glad to have you for episode 2 of our exploration in lost music lore. Today, we continue discovering more music that never was, from actually stolen laptops to forgotten recording sessions and some pitiful puns. But hey, no one ever said this music would be easy to find. But that doesn't mean we can try. Welcome to the second episode of the Lost Music Deep Dive. Today's video will focus on work made by famous artists that is yet to be found but is somewhat notoriously missing. Grab a board and let's go surfing. 30s blues singer Robert Johnson was previously thought to have recorded 41 tracks in his lifetime, but his 2008 biography mentioned paperwork that listed as many as 59, just 10 shy of the world's best number. The extra 18 tracks have yet to resurface, but it's been 90 years, so I wouldn't keep my hopes up for Robert. We might have a better chance with The Who. Emboldened by the success of Tommy, hard rock band The Who decided to capitalize on it by recording another rock opera that would focus on a post-apocalyptic world called Lifehouse. I'm really dating myself with all these references lost in the first video, a movie that is now 8 years old on this one. Eventually, this version was scrapped to create a more straightforward rock album, Who's Next, made up of abandoned ideas from Lifehouse that were also revisited on their later record, Who Are You? They were so good at puns. The actual demo tracks, however, from Lifehouse were never heard, just like the demos that Depeche Mode left behind. English synthpop band Depeche Mode recorded a 7-song demo for their 1986 Black Celebration album, which focused on a darker musical tone than their previous recordings. 2 of the original recordings, Shake the Disease and This Is the House, were found and are currently in circulation. The rest that appeared on the album were the final versions used for Black Celebration, except for one. It's Called a Heart was not on the record and is not known to have been recorded under a different title at any point in time. The single version of the track was eventually released and reached moderate levels of success, but the goth-tinged synthy organ of the demo remains a mystery to this day. This was another case of Depeche Mode doing what they used to do, which was to usually record demos before heading back into the studio to work on the final product. And it happened again before their 7th album, Violator, came out, with the Perversion demo tape. And it's not the name of an adult tape, though you're welcome to look it up. 4 tracks have since resurfaced, including a slower version of Enjoy the Silence, with a few lyrical changes. The tape as a whole was never released, but the XXX version is probably somewhere out there, as per Rule 34. One thing I hope the internet has not ruined is Melvins and Son. The story of the entitled song by the sludge metal band Melvins actually starts with another metal band, Son. The only clue of its existence comes from a boombox recording from a 1985 live show sampled by Sun guitarist Greg Anderson on their song Rabbit's Revenge. The inspiration behind the title probably being Melvins frontman Buzz Osborne, who can be heard singing the words "I Get My Revenge" on the original recording, along with a reference to the Melvins song Hung Bunny that clearly inspired Sun's sound. It is unknown if a studio recording of the song exists, or if the band ever intended to actually record it. There are no doubts, however, when it comes to the Smiths. In 2005, Mike Joyce, drummer of the iconic 80s Brit band The Smiths, announced he was selling the band's early unreleased demo tapes, which seemed to amount to mostly a loose collection of instrumental tracks and unfinished pieces. Later, vocalist Morrissey, as is expected of Morrissey, openly denied that Joyce had the right to sell this unreleased material, which made them unable to move forward with the sale. So, the exact amount of demo tracks the members actually have at this present moment in time is unknown, although they may not be lost per se. Which could also be the case for Guided by Voices. Lo-fi indie band Guided by Voices were an incredibly prolific and unconventional indie rock band with a career spanning over 30 years and albums. They began performing in bars in the 80s, but quickly realized what they loved doing the most was experimenting with audio recordings. This is probably why some of their whereabouts are still unknown. Unreleased material was either re-recorded or reworked into albums that would eventually be released or cataloged in one of their numerous outtake compilations. And rumor has it, they may have as many as 25 albums worth of songs that remain unheard. And for something a little less impressive, The recordings made by hip-hop's most tasteful duo, Insane Clown Posse's first incarnation as the JJ Boys, are notoriously lost. They only recorded one song that was distributed to family and friends called Party at the Top of the Hill, but no one has it anymore. A couple of EPs from the same period were also lost, as they were only physically distributed around high schools in the area for free, before Bandcamp ever existed. Although, there's always a chance they might make a comeback, unlike the Posse's current music. One thing I do hold out hope for is Opinion. Opinion was an early offering from the grunge pioneers Nirvana, which premiered at a local radio station in Olympia, Washington on the same night it was written, as a diatribe against sensationalistic media, and taking procrastination to a whole new creative level. The song didn't surface until the release of the With the Lights Out box set in 2004. A clean possible studio demo was used in the end card of the 2015 documentary about Kurt Cobain, Montage of Heck, which is just one more reason for you to check it out today. And speaking of tragically dead musicians, before his death, French singer Serge Gainsbourg left several unfinished tracks that were intended to be part of a new album. He was going to record the last songs for Moi-même Buona in New Orleans, but died before this could happen. The concept album was going to have a blues and funk sound, but the existing demos were never released. It was also named after a hilariously racist joke made by an interviewer questioning Gainsbourg on another one of his projects. So yikes. On the less controversial side of things, in 1992, the Rolling Stones frontman Mick Jagger was recording his third solo album, which would eventually be released under the name Wandering Spirit. His producer, Rick Rubin, had been working with the blues rock band Red Devils and pitched to Jagger a collaboration. He performed with them live for a couple of covers. Jagger also recorded an entire album's worth of blues covers with them in a mere 13 hours. But only one song has been officially released, called Checkin' Up on My Baby, in a compilation years later in 2007. Checking up on the others, it looks like the album was shelved for unknown reasons. Not talking about the deluxe edition of Olivia Rodrigo's new album. Stone Sour was actually our now resident guest on these videos, Corey Taylor's first ever band, who performed for 5 years and recorded 3 demos before disbanding when Taylor left to join Slipknot. Only 3 tracks have been uploaded to YouTube to this day from one of the lost demo tapes. They did eventually reform after 3 short years in 2000 and have since put out music you can easily find virtually anywhere. Unlike Beck's demos. In 1994, singer-songwriter Beck claimed in an email addressed to fans who had pre-ordered a copy of his newest record, One Foot in the Grave, that he had recorded a second session with K Records that would be released at a later date. When they say later date, it is never a good sign, just ask Kevin Shields. A photo of one of Beck's notebooks from the time showed the track listing, which made this claim promising, and the rumored title of the release was going to be A Tombstone Every Mile. But tragically, it never came. While one of the songs, Cold Brains, eventually did make it to the 1998 album Mutations, a decade later in 2005, Beck himself leaked one of the tracks, The Way It Seems, but the rest of the songs still remain lost, despite being apparently in his possession. Maybe he'll leak more in exchange for one of his auditing tapes. And maybe while we're at it, someone will also hand us over the Typo Negative stuff that we've been waiting for. If She Loved Me is a song by goth metal Brooklyn-based band Typo Negative that was first performed live in 1994 at a show in England. After this concert, the band included in a few set lists at later live gigs, but no studio version has ever resurfaced. Even after the death of vocalist Peter Steele and the release of various compilations and rarities albums, it was still never included, leading many to assume that it had never been recorded, or that, in fact, most tragically, she did not love him. Space Lord was the single by the stoner rock band Monster Magnet and the first video to be ever played on MTV's TRL. Much like the YouTube ad suitability bot does with this channel, A&M Records, which by then had become part of Universal Music, required the band to remove the line "Space Lord motherfucker" before releasing the album. The uncensored version of the song hasn't been made public, but a few remixes exist as bootlegs. And my uncensored videos are all on Patreon, so we all win. Unfortunately though, one thing you won't find there is Van Halen's attempted follow-up to their failed effort, Van Halen 3, which has been lost, possibly as a sign from the universe. Only the working titles for the tracks have been ever revealed, although more than 20 songs have been produced. At some point during production, lead singer Gary Cherone left and then formed his own band, whose first album contained one song from the now cancelled Van Halen record, Left for Dead. The irony on these titles continues to fascinate me. In 1999, alternative metal band Avenged Sevenfold returned to the studio to re-record 2 songs off of their debut album. One of them was Warmness of the Soul, an infuriating grammatical fallacy and a track dedicated to vocalist M. Shadow's girlfriend that had to be reworked to become a single for the label's Sampler EP. No one really knows what was wrong with the original, but it was never released or made public in any way, with a re-recorded version taking its place on the final release of the album. As of 2016, the band began performing it as an instrumental live track, but the 99 version remains a mystery. Although Shadow's girlfriend did end up marrying him, so they must have done something right in that studio. And we will never know if that was the case for this next EP. Canadian rock band The Miller Stain Limit resorted to self-releasing EPs after they were dropped by the label Universal Records in 2001. 2 tracks were uploaded to the Internet Archive and are currently on YouTube, but the rest remain lost, even after the band was contacted about possibly making them available again. Time will only tell if they will someday resurface. And while we're on the subject of time, Making Time was the tragically named, rumored second album of R&B group Ideal, who had debuted in 1999 to significant mainstream success. In 2004, they signed to Universal and revealed they had made the time to release a new album, which was going to feature a collaboration with CeeLo Green. But, for unknown reasons, too much time was made. The release got shelved, along with the dreamy collab, and the band subsequently broke up. No evidence of the album even ever going into production was ever recovered, save for a single Billboard article. But who knows, maybe they're still just making more time. And now, for a first and honestly maybe last time on Sets in the CD channel, wrestling. Professional wrestler Triple H's theme song, The Game, was written and performed by English rock band Motorhead. But several alternate versions exist, including a cover version performed by another heavy metal band, Disturbed, although only a 10-second portion of it was ever released on Twitter. Hopefully we'll be a little luckier in finding The White Diamond. White Diamond was a track written by Australian pop icon Kylie Minogue during her recovery from breast cancer. The song was written during sessions with the Sister Sisters, Groove Armada, Bifco, William Reed of the Jesus and Mary Chain, and Johnny Douglas. And with credits like that, a recovery was inevitable, thankfully for Kylie's health. This same cannot be said for the track, though. While it was performed on her comeback tour, it has never been commercially released or even leaked. While we await, or in my case, pray to the Jesus and Mary chain for a potential full release, various fan-made mixes featuring audio from the versions currently available are around online if you want to get an idea of what this sounds like. On a less religious note, pop-punk band Panic! At the Disco began recording their second album, Cricket and Clover, in 2007. And they tell me I have a pun problem. Half of these song titles are puns. They rented a cabin on a mountain in Nevada and began writing the album, but because of the isolation, members went a little crazy, so they weren't particularly productive. Gee, I sure am glad we've never had to face prolonged isolation like that. The album was going to be more conceptual than their last, weaving together a story through songs that led into each other, which followed 2 lovers, named Cricket and Clover. Eventually, the whole thing was scrapped, but several songs have been leaked online over the years. Former bassist John Walker recently found the tracks but did not release them fully to the public, for reasons unknown.
Your name, sorry, but there's no such thing as that actually. There's only like 3 demos that were. So, sorry, it's not really a real thing.
And the next entry is another first for us, country. alt-country icon Ryan Adams of Whiskey Town and the Cardinals, despite his success, is not exactly new at dealing with rejection and makes me wish I could do it just as well as him, honestly. Lost Highway Records, again the irony just keeps going with these, did manage to release his 3 2005 albums, Cold Roses, Jacksonville City Nights, and 29. But the label is still holding on to over 100 unreleased tracks from a number of sessions from past albums that never saw the light of day, although a few bootlegs are out there. Unfortunately, there was even more that Lost Highway passed on, namely 3 albums, one of them which Adam claims was him at his most fucked up. The guy didn't even get to release them in the special box set he was planning, which included an insert written by Stephen King, because the label feared it wouldn't have sold. Like of It, Misery, The Shining, and Dark Tower fame, Stephen King. I'm sorry, but how could it not have sold? Luckily, Ryan has since blocked Lost Highway's number, lawyered up, hit the gym, and actually self-released and released plenty of material on other labels. Good for him. And someone who's definitely not a first-timer in our deep dives is Tyler, the Creator, but I'm sure none of you are complaining. Before hitting it big, rapper Tyler, the Creator released a couple of albums on the SoundCloud of the mid-2000s, MySpace, as Ace, the Creator. One of them, called Stereotype, was produced in 2006 and has only been partially found. It was deleted during the global disaster that was the 2019 server migration that led to the loss of most of MySpace music, but some songs were eventually reworked in other albums or leaked online as instrumentals. Years later, in 2010, Tyler began planning Wolf, a new record to succeed his debut non-digital mixtape, Bastard, that we discussed in our Disturbing Albums Iceberg. But due to his freshly scored record deal, it was scrapped, with some songs being reworked into 2011's actual bona fide debut, Goblin. The 2013 version of Wolf, which followed it, was released by XL Recordings and ended up being very different from the original, with only a few songs from speculative track lists, along with leaked snippets and whatever this is as a cover. And just as likely to walk the fine line between quirky and terrifying is Ween. Since their formation, chameleonic rock band Ween have recorded a number of demo tapes and songs alongside official releases. Although, more often than not, you can't really tell which is which. Several tapes formerly distributed on now-defunct websites and streaming services have become particularly hard to come by. Lucky for them, their Discord server community has made it a mission to unearthing rare media, like when certain shortened audio files were recovered from an archive, although they sadly turned out to just be live performances that had already been widely shared. There was more to the story, but rest assured, this is not going to become a music drama Discord commentary channel, no matter how much I like Panchico. Moving on, the king of pop Michael Jackson had allegedly recorded more than 50,000 tracks throughout his lifetime, which, hey, what a coincidence, is also the number of songs I have not written in my lifetime too. Some of his unreleased songs include solo works, covers, collaborations, demos that were reworked into songs released by him or other artists, and Jackson 5 songs, which was the group he was in with his siblings during his extremely healthy infancy. Some of the most notable and heard tracks include several songs from the recording sessions for his album Dangerous and collaborations with will.i.am, Akon, Kanye West, and Chris Brown, which were a part of a project meant to update his classic 70s sound from his disco debut Off the Wall in a brand new album in 2009 that, with that roster, sounds dated already. There was also an auction in 2010 for another unreleased album, but the winner was barred from leaking or distributing the songs, although some of them may have already found their way back online. Something that hasn't happened to the Strokes. 18 demos were recorded during the sessions for the indie rock band's 2011 album, Angles. Only one of them, though, Life is Simple in the Moonlight, made it onto the album. Thankfully, because it was my favorite. Vocalist Julian Casablancas and guitarist Nick Valenci have confirmed that they still have the recordings, but no intention to ever release them. And there are also no bootlegs or live recordings, so it's highly unlikely that we'll ever get to hear them. And on the other side of the world, Noel Gallagher, of Britpop band Sensation and my personal nemesis Oasis, became interested in collaborating with Amorphous Androgynous, aka electronic project The Future Sound of London, after they'd produced one of the last singles of the band in 2009. When Noel went solo, he recorded an entire album's worth of material, but ended up disliking it so much that he destroyed the master tapes, like the many hotel rooms of his past. Maybe he was just really picky about interior design all along, guys. 3 songs were eventually made public, and Gallagher has stated that he's found a copy of the record in his sock drawer, and I do not want to think about why it was there. but most likely it will never see the light of day. Like one infamous set of laptops. In 2011, Sonny Moore, aka Bro Step legend Skrillex, had 2 laptops and hard drives actually stolen from his hotel room in Milan, Italy, unlike Calvin Harris in our last video. Among the lost files was an actual full album's worth of new material. After failing to recuperate the equipment, he moved on and rewrote the album, but the original version was never found. Maybe all he needed were the famous 750 pounds Calvin Harris claimed to promise for it to magically reappear. And maybe Alan Palomo did too. After the final show of his tour, chillwave pioneer and surprisingly illuminated TED Talk host Alan Palomo of Neon Indian locked himself out of his New York apartment and had to sleep on its front door. Not unlike your surprisingly illuminating host of today's program did many times. When he woke up that morning, his laptop, which contained the only version of his entire album, had been stolen. And now you understand why today's video is brought to you by Cloudlet. Just kidding, I'm at 2,000 subs. Alan had to re-record everything that would end up on his album Vega International Night School, which was eventually released 2 years behind schedule and has been the last album he's put out ever since. And it's time for Kanye. Nope, no Donda on this channel yet. Black Bruce Wayne was thought of as an unreleased track from rapper Kanye West's Yeezus-era recordings of circa 2013. While some snippets of the rap have been released, including a mysterious beat, per Kanye's producer Mike Dean, the song was scrapped due to the production being below par. Black Bruce Wayne was later revealed to be a fake edit, which meant it used made-up instrumentals over Kanye's real vocals that had been taken from a feature verse he did on a track on the mixtape by Chicago hip-hop group the LEP Boys, whom Kanye had mentioned on his Don't Like remix. Kanye was going to appear on the group's mixtape Don't Feed the Killers 4, but it got scrapped and the group retired in 2014. He caused further havoc when his lyrics for the album Life of Pablo, which were originally annotated on his phone's notes app, were lost. Which is why you don't write your $1 million album lyrics on your notes app. This allegedly happened when Daughter North accidentally flushed the iPhone down the toilet, and Apple was unable to assist in recovering the backup. See, it's not just us mere mortals having problems at the Genius Bar, Yeezy too. Although Amelia Lilly probably had a worse time than us or him. English singer Amelia Lilly skyrocketed to fame when she placed 3rd on the 8th season of reality competition show The X Factor in 2011, where she was mentored by R&B icon Kelly Rowland. She signed to the label Xenomania and announced her debut album shortly thereafter, which was going to be called Be a Fighter. 3 singles were released to massive success, incorporating electropop and, as was trendy in 2013, watered-down dubstep. Why was that a thing again? The full album release date kept getting delayed until a digital-only version was released in 2014, before being completely pulled by the record label. Possibly because by then Amelia had been working on releasing new music with Warner Records. She eventually moved to touring with pop group Girls Aloud and appeared on a number of reality TV shows over the years. Several fans recomposed the album by creating a playlist of the leaked tracks online. And it's that time again where I talk about British teen pop. Just Can't Let Her Go is probably how many fans feel about this unreleased song by British boy band One Direction, which currently exists as a 2-minute leaked version on YouTube. After the leak, any chance of the song being formally released vanished. But the music industry just couldn't let her go and sold her off to 14-year-old musician Isaac Elliott, who later released it on one of his own albums to a lukewarm response of fans who by then were ready to set her free. And Get Free was also going to be the debut album by ska musician Rome Ramirez and his own band, Rome, who worked with members of the band Sublime and Enrique Iglesias. It was going to come out in 2014 following the 2012 EP, but never did, despite the heavy promotion and 4 singles released. Ramirez has since returned to touring and regularly supports Sublime to this day. Not to be confused with the other band, Rome, who is also basically a one-man show by Luxembourg-born neo-folk martial industrialist Jérôme Router. Wow. For once, I'm actually talking about Welsh metalcore band Bullet for My Valentine on purpose. So if you always mistake them for My Bloody Valentine, there is a multi-part series on this channel, and now this entry to clarify that. If I only had $1 for every time this happened. Actually, I wouldn't be that rich because I spend more time correcting myself and clarifying the difference than I do talking about Bullet for My Valentine, but here we go. In 2015, after the last Bullet for My Valentine album received negative reviews, the band attempted to make up for it by spending over a year writing and recording the heaviest melodies and lyrics they'd ever done by then. Of the 20 songs written and recorded, only one, In Loving Memory, saw an official release as a bonus demo track. The rest were rejected by the label and probably won't see a release anytime soon. Like the many Madlib collaborations lying around. When hip-hop producer Madlib was collaborating with rapper Freddie Gibbs on the record Pinata, he met Mac Miller, who had been brought on to record a verse for the album. It was love at first bar between the producer and the rapper, and by July 2016, the two planned to create an EP together. The songs were played on a festival by Madlib in 2017, but when Miller overdosed and died in the following year, the project remained unfinished. Producer Thelonious Martin and musician Thundercat have confirmed the existence of the EP, nicknamed Maclib. But Madlib himself later clarified that there were no official plans to release the material. One single entitled Song, presumably from the EP, which featured Thundercat, was played a couple of times live and remains the only piece to be public to this day. But nothing was ever known about the Mazzy Star B-sides. Alternative dream folk band Mazzy Star took over a decade to release Seasons of Your Day, the fourth and last album by them in 2013. After their record contract was up in 1996, the band faced several difficulties, and only recorded scattered tracks with a number of notorious musicians throughout the years, until the album was finally released 17 years later, but not in its complete form. Many of the unreleased recordings are still an enigma to the group's fan base, and the only person who held on to them was guitarist David Roback, who had previously stated he did not intend to release them for as long as he was alive, and, well, he died last year, so who only knows what will happen to these records now. Here's to hoping that someday all of these projects will make it out of limbo. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and the more humorous take we had on these entries today. Subscribe to the channel to keep up with the crazy journey and know exactly when the next video will be up. We also make music video essays and documentaries. On our next video, we'll dive into lost projects with crazy convoluted stories that most still can't wrap their minds upon. A special thanks to the patrons supporting the channel. If you also want to get your name in the credits and access exclusive feature episodes and bonus streams, consider joining us on there to satisfy your cravings. Follow us on Twitter to keep up behind the scenes, and check out the Spotify playlist below to descend deep down the lost music iceberg. We'll see you soon for more stories behind the music.